And you had the most enthusiastic supporters of anybody I ever saw.
I'd love to hear that.
Well, I mean, my goodness, everywhere I went, they were literally running down highways holding your signs. Now, I've never had a chance to tell you that, but your message obviously resonated with a lot of people.
Thank you.
You're going to encourage them.
Man, right behind you, Steve. Just take a look over your shoulder and see what they did.
They're everywhere. They're everywhere. I mean, honestly.
You know, the governors, you know, had a good crowd out, and they had a lot of enthusiasm. But he left, and everybody else left. Well, 2 to 3 hours later, we had people there still, you know, having a real good time and celebrating. And I always talk about, you know, the tireless, irate minority that leads the charge. But we're not so small. We're not so much a minority. We're marching on. The numbers are growing. The people now, by a large majority, not only are the military tired of all these wars, but the people are waking up and they realize
there is no authority in the Constitution authorizing a central bank, which means there should be no Federal Reserve.
Ron Paul stays in this race no matter what happens. He stays in this race through Florida. He stays in this race through Super Tuesday. And a lot of these races have a proportionate voting system. So his 20% here, his 25% there is going to allow him to accumulate delegates. What is the establishment of the party going to do with him?
That's a good question, because I think it's more, you know, let's face it, it's more a question of what does Ron Paul want to do to the establishment in the Republican Party, because he's in the catbird seat here. He is bringing not just a sizable number of people that is growing every day, but these are the people who are intense followers. Mitt Romney, nobody would walk across the street to pull him, you know, pull his head out of a puddle of water. Ron Paul is the guy that people are, you know, walking on their hands and knees. They are making pilgrimage for this guy because he excites people and he engenders the kind of idealism and optimism. He's the hope and change agent that Barack Obama was talking about being in 2008. So Ron Paul is in a very good position to start dictating the future of the Republican Party.
Are you now the buffer between Mitt Romney and the rest of the Republican candidates? He was clearly energized by his big showing here last night.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
For Ron Paul, New Hampshire's silver medal was a big win.
we had a victory for something very important in this country. We had a victory for the cause of liberty last night.
We know the numbers are stacked against Mitt Romney. That's why this is so important with the dynamic that's happening right now. Mitt Romney's the elite candidate. He's the Goldman Sachs candidate. He's the Obama of the Republican Party. And the polls show very clearly that maybe 30% or so of the voters want Romney. The other 70% want someone more conservative. There's no path to the White House without Ron Paul. It looks now, if Newt Gingrich makes a run here, and he apparently has, whether he wins or not, he's made the run, that there's no way that Newt Gingrich could win the nomination without Ron Paul. He's not even on the ballot. There are 564 delegates at stake that Newt Gingrich and Rick Santorum are not even on the ballot, that Ron Paul is on the ballot.
We've had enough of sending our kids and our money around the world to be the policemen of the world. It's the time to bring them home. But I sort of have to chuckle when they describe you and me as being dangerous.
Even if Ron Paul won every primary, he wouldn't be embraced by the establishment because no candidate since Ronald Reagan has so threatened the establishment. Remember what the establishment said about Reagan? He's radical and out of touch and dangerous. It's the same thing the establishment now says about Ron Paul.
That's one thing they are telling the truth, because we are dangerous to the status quo of this country.
gravest threat that America and the world faces was a nuclear Iran.
Maximum covert operations to block and disrupt the Iranian program, including taking out their scientists, including breaking up their systems, all of it covertly, all of it deniable. I think our goal should be the replacement of the Iranian dictatorship, to finance every possible element of opposition, and to apply every possible economic sanction, including ultimately, if necessary, cutting off gasoline so that the regime collapses. That is, there was an axis of evil: Iran, Iraq, North Korea. Well, we're one out of three.
Anyone that suggests that Iran is not a threat to this country or is not a threat to stability in the Middle East is obviously not seeing the world very clearly. Iran is a country that must be confronted.
The only danger Ron Paul represents is to the establishment that fears its own loss of power. He's the only Republican candidate for president who truly will shrink the government. He's the only Republican candidate who will keep the government from adding to its debt, keep your money from losing its value, keep our troops from fighting meaningless wars. We're at a crossroads in our history. Most of us are sick and tired of too much government. And we must reject those Republicans who preach small government, but when they are elected, just expand the government into their version of big government. That's what George W. Bush did. He fought 2 wars on a credit card. He had the feds take over education and prescription drugs for seniors. He added $2 trillion to the government's debt. He assaulted the Constitution by letting federal agents write their own search warrants. And he borrowed money from the Chinese and gave it to Wall Street in TARP and other failed stimulus programs. The establishment candidate this year is Mitt Romney. He's the big government guy. He likes government and wants to expand it under the guise of improving it. Governor Romney's monetary policies are not intended to grow the economy. He is no champion of free market capitalism because he believes that the banks are too big to fail and TARP and stimulus are the right things to do. Ron Paul has already demonstrated that he is the bridge between restoring trust from ordinary Americans and their government.
Those 6 candidates are repugnant to freedom. They don't believe in the Constitution. They don't believe that our rights come from our humanity. They just believe in a Republican version of big government.
He's broadening his base. What's happening now is he started out with young people. First of all, he's the only candidate with a base. And that's really important. All of these.
What do you mean the only candidate with a base? Mitt Romney has the establishment.
Well, but that's a fundraising base. Ron Paul is the only guy out there with a real base of people that support him. When in politics, political strategists talk about a base, Romney doesn't have a base. His base is fundraising. It's just kind of an air game. Ron Paul knocks on doors. He's got people behind him. Rick Santorum doesn't really have that. He might have a little one. Gingrich doesn't have anything. He doesn't even have an organization. All of these people have to recreate their base in every single state. Ron Paul doesn't. And the better news for him is he's surging in that he's reaching deeper and deeper.
Can he get the Republican nomination?
Oh, yes. I think he can. He's in it for the distance. I mean, Romney will be in it. Ron Paul will be in it. You're going to have one conservative. Gingrich and Santorum are probably battling for that 3rd spot. One of them, and that they probably will drop away. I would predict you could have all the way to the convention floor, Ron Paul versus Mitt, and Ron Paul could very well win. The big problem Romney would have is he just can't turn the base on at all. And we're seeing today he's not even strong among independents. Ron Paul really beat him with independents in New Hampshire. Romney is just all money. So he has neither base nor independents.
3 years into his fight whatever war he wants, kill whatever American he wants, give away whatever cash he wants, regulate whatever behavior he wants regime, we know that Barack Obama represents business as usual for the establishment. They voted for a message tailored to make them think that they were voting for exactly the change that each voter wanted. Because Obama never really represented a threat to the establishment.
Both parties have been derelict in this. We go to war now at the president's insistence. Does he come to the Congress, especially in this with this recent administration? Has he come to the Congress to get involved in Libya and these various countries, and now in Syria, and thinking about going on into Iran? Does he come and get, if we have to go to war, does he come and get a declaration of war? No, they just go and do it. I don't think that's right. This means we would go to war more rarely, and if we did go to war, we would win them instead of stagnating and being involved for 10 years. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work. We have the message, we have the talent, we have the determination, and we will win this battle for peace and prosperity. Thank you.
It's a sad state of affairs that a simple return to first principles represents fundamental change. But that's where we are today in 2012. It has taken nearly 250 years to stray as far from founding principles as we have. If we want to return to them in our generation, we're going to have to rock the boat. We've drifted so far, drowned so deep in debt, lost so many of our rights, fought so many fruitless wars, that if we don't rock the boat now, we may end up sinking with it.